Story 1. Close your eyes. Look left, look right, look up, then down. Circle clockwise, then counterclockwise. Repeat. This is effective for this poor sleeper every time I have used it over the past few weeks. Every night. Story 2. Think about what your outfit will be for the next day. It helps you imagine and dream in a fantasy land, but it is slightly mundane enough to keep you bored and tired. Story 3. It's odd, but I watch Brian Cox's series on BBC iPlayer. Within minutes, I am fast asleep, even though it's very interesting. iPad to the side with AirPods in, and I am lights out within minutes. Story 4. Dark room. I cover my eyes with a sleep mask. No screen time 30 minutes before sleep. I write, journal, or read. Story 5. Routine. I try to keep the half hour before going to bed the same. Brush teeth. Read. Meditate. Check that doors are locked. Then go to bed. When my toothbrush is in my mouth, my brain knows that there are 30 minutes before it has to switch off, and it will do so almost as soon as my head hits the pillow. Story 6. Have children and be constantly exhausted so that whenever the moment arises, I can simply fall asleep. Story 7. A lot of jokes in the comments, but I'll give you a real tip. Wear an eye mask and earplugs. It will take a few days of adaptation, but once you get in your groove, these two items are like a sleeping pill, total game changers to fall asleep in a maximum of 15 minutes. Story 8. Close your eyes. Move your eyes back and forth under your closed lids and imagine yourself flying on the back of a dragon over an elven forest. I never get farther than that and I am out. Story 9. Weed, a high tetrahydrocannabinol indica, works every night for me, along with earplugs to block out the noise from my not-so-fancy air conditioning unit. Story 10. 100 milligrams trazodone. Sometimes that does not work, so I try thinking of 5 towns from my state in alphabetical order. Andover, Alexandria, Apple Valley, Afton, Aitken. Then I move on to the letter B. It may sound silly, but as a lifelong insomniac, it is the best method I have found to help bore my mind to sleep. Story 11. No coffee after 12 p.m. I work out and read a very boring book that I do not like in bed. I fall asleep before I realize it. Story 12. The minute I recline all the way back in my recliner, I fall asleep. Cannot fall asleep in my bed. The recliner supports my body in a perfect position, with the sides gently hugging me, and I feel weightless. When I sleep in it, I do not toss and turn, and I sleep well. Story 13. I personally turn on Adult Swim on Cartoon Network. Keeps the brain occupied so I can drift off easily. Story 14. I lie in bed and think, if I won the Euro Millions, how I would divide it among my friends and family. I fall asleep within 5 minutes, so I feel bad for the handful of friends who did not make the cut in time. Story 15. I don't know that it's a hack since I can't really teach it, but when the light goes off and I lay my head down, I can seemingly just tell myself, oh, time to turn the brain off. And my mind goes quiet. It's such a good feeling to quietly slip away as the system powers down. Took me a long time to realize how lucky I am to be able to do this. A quiet mind is the closest thing I have to a mutant power. Give me a few minutes pretty much anywhere and I can be out. Story 16. Maybe not a hack, but lowering lights in the evening helped me a lot. Switching to light sources or bulbs with lower brightness and warmer light temperature. Lower Kelvin value, 3 hours before bed. Light affects our sleep-wake cycle, also known as the circadian rhythm. Our brain processes bright light as the sun is still up, so it's not time to sleep yet. Gradually dimming electronic screens until bedtime. For computers, use a program like f.lux and lower the brightness gradually in the graphics card control panel. For phones, use the built-in night or dark mode option that you can schedule or an app like Twilight. Using a face mask or other cloth around the eyes, or sleeping in a dark room with a closed door, covered windows, and covered bright LED lights on electronics. Note: if you sleep in a closed room, make sure to keep it well ventilated during other hours. Story 17. Well, I went from taking several hours to fall asleep to now doing it in 10 to 20 minutes. I saw a sleep psychologist and he pointed out we need between 6 and 10 hours of sleep. Most people aim for 8 hours because it is the average. But the reality is some people need 10 hours, while others only need 6. He suggested I try 6 hours because, for over 25 years, I was waking up 2 to 3 times a night to urinate, which indicated I might be trying to get too much sleep. Also, I was taking a long time to fall asleep. At the time, I might have had undiagnosed attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is now confirmed. Medication for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a stimulant, and the psychologist suggested I do stimulating and rewarding activities. I jokingly asked, like video games? He replied, yes, they can be a good idea. Another stimulating activity I do before bed is paint by numbers while watching television. This way, I get some stories told to me. Here is my sleep routine summarized. At 7:30 p.m., after the children go to bed, I do paint by numbers and watch television series. Around 10 p.m., I turn on the PlayStation. At 11 p.m., I take 10 milligrams of melatonin. At 11:30 p.m., I go to bed, and at 5:30 a.m., I wake up. Story 18. Box breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. Repeat. It calms your nervous system and quiets the racing mind. Story 19. The air filter on my nightstand running on low with a soft blue glow pointed toward the ceiling hums me to sleep. Story 20. Since I was a kid, I have enjoyed writing fanfiction. I know that my younger self would recognize my current self if I remind him of the fanfictions I have thought about. For example, the King Babur cartoon show. Story 21. I focus on the shadows behind my eyelids. It is faint, but I usually see wormhole-like or kaleidoscope patterns if I really concentrate. It becomes much more vivid if I eat a gummy. Mesmerizing. Story 22. I close my eyes and imagine that there are 2 curtains. I slowly draw them closed. Once done, it becomes so dark that my mind only thinks it is dark, and I need to sleep. Just like that, I doze off. Story 23. Try to enter a lucid dream while maintaining awareness, balancing between being awake and asleep. I often dive too deep into scattered thoughts, lose track, and become fully unconscious. Story 24. I eat melatonin gummies whenever I am stressed or anxious to the point that I cannot fall asleep easily. They work wonders. You eat 2 gummies and in half an hour you feel very tired. You may develop some resistance, but if you take them only occasionally, you should not have any problems. Story 25. Building a made-up happy scenario in my head or designing my dream house or my dream life in explicit detail. The sleep that follows is always peaceful. Story 26. I like to watch a relaxing movie or series I have already seen, something cozy and familiar. Before I know it, I am asleep. What is your go-to movie for that? Story 27. Do not think about anything related to your actual life because that produces adrenaline. Think about fantasy content. Story 28. Music. I have a playlist of songs that I absolutely love and that bring me peace and serenity. Set the sleep timer to 1 hour, and I am usually asleep by the 3rd song. Story 29. I will make a quick check with my muscles, meaning I will figure out which muscles are stiff and relax them one by one. The ones I usually notice the most are my shoulders and brows. They are usually stiff, especially if I am trying to sleep when I am not yet sleepy. It works for me, though. Story 30. My wife scratches my head every night until I fall asleep. I have been trying to get her to stop because I feel bad for her, but she loves it apparently. Luckily, she does not have to give me head scratches for a long time until I fall asleep. Story 31. Visualize a calming scene, such as a beach, forest, or a serene part of a golf course. Story 32. Work for a company that has a culture of controlling when employees can leave work. Working 14 to 16 hours will help you fall asleep easily. Story 33. Environment-wise, your room should be dark and cool. For better sleep, I use melatonin as an alternative to help me fall asleep quickly. The key is to take melatonin when your body and mind are calm and relaxed. This has been effective for me, as someone with poor sleeping habits, and it helps me reach several hours of sleep easily. Another method, if you don't like taking medication, is to use white noise, close your eyes, and breathe slowly. Relax and clear your mind. Avoiding any thoughts until you feel sleepy. Story 34. I imagine myself in a shallow, small cave wrapped up in a warm bedroll with a cheerful little fire keeping my face warm. Imagining safety and satisfaction creates feelings of safety and satisfaction. Story 35. I let my mind take over, and my thoughts become a chain reaction. I think of one thing that makes me think of another, and then my thoughts become daydreams, causing me to drift off. Story 36. According to my wife, putting my head on the pillow means I am asleep. I argue that I am thinking about things and not asleep. She insists that I am thinking while snoring as soon as my head touches the pillow. Story 37. Repeat the words 1, 2 slowly while relaxing facial, hand, and other muscles. This must work because the next thing I remember is waking up. Story 38. When I smoke marijuana before going to sleep, I just close my eyes and my mind takes me everywhere. Thinking is very enjoyable if your mind has no limits. Story 39. Tried a couple of things. 1. Backward count from 500. 2. For 7-8 breathing technique. 3. Pick an alphabet and remember all words starting with that letter. Story 40. I am like Hitchcock or Scully from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I sleep at will. Crowded place. Sleep. Sitting. Sleep. Once on the tube, I slept standing up. At night or during a siesta, I hit the bed and 2 minutes later it's lights out. I wake up exactly 5.5 hours later, which is a pain when I am still hungover. Story 41. Make alphabetical lists in your head, but simple ones made up of categories from things you are interested in. For example, a list of comedy films you have seen or action and science fiction films, or lists of rock bands, female solo artists, male solo artists, and so on. The first example would go something like Austin Powers, Bridesmaids, Caddyshack. I did this so much that I ended up having to get really specific with my lists, such as films with one-word titles, films with more than 5 words in the titles, songs with titles that are not in the lyrics, and classic films from before 1960. Then I learned all United States, as I am English, then their state capitals, and then the presidents of the United States in order. It is very effective. I often only got to F or G in the list. Story 42. Ensure the room and bedding are cool enough. Wear a sleep mask to keep the environment dark. Relax every muscle. Story 43. Slow breathing and concentrating on various muscle groups or body parts while imagining a deep, relaxing massage. Story 44. I start by controlling my breathing. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out. Sometimes 4 seconds in, 7 seconds hold, 8 seconds out. I keep repeating thoughts that I am falling asleep, a lot of sleep, a heavy and comforting sleep, a pleasant sleep. I did this yesterday around 2:30 a.m., needing to wake up at 5:30 a.m. I slept quickly and woke up feeling ready. Story 45. Put on a video of people talking about nature and turn down the volume until you can only hear the S and C sounds. Make sure your face is covered except for your nose and mouth. Relax your entire body and feel yourself sink into the ground. Do not move and you will fall asleep quickly. You can still think. Story 46. Reading. Even the best book won't hold my attention for more than 5 to 10 minutes. I read on a Kindle Paperwhite, so I don't even need to turn on a light. I usually fall asleep with the Kindle still in bed. The only downside is that sometimes it hits me in the head. Story 47. Essential oil diffuser with lavender oil. I don't buy into the whole essential oils thing, but this one I swear by. Story 48. Stopped drinking coffee afternoon. Tried to stop overthinking. These two were the major points. Everything else, like the tips suggested by others, did not work. Story 49. Pick a word like ocean and think of as many words as you can that begin with each letter for a certain category. For example, foods. Olives, oranges, carrots, cake, elephant ears. Story 50. Start counting backwards from random starting numbers. If you start falling asleep and lose track, just start over again. Repeat until it works. Story 51. When I was a designer, I used to design something in my head or work out how a 3-dimensional paper model of a shape would look if it was flattened out. I know it sounds weird, but it helped me fall asleep. That was in my 30s. Story 52. No coffee or caffeine after midday. If you are unable to sleep within 5 minutes, take a pencil and write what is on your mind on paper. Then try again. This has worked for me for 5 years now. Story 53. I lay down and fall asleep. I am out like a light in less than 4 minutes. I am usually drunk and high. I do not know if that counts. But it is my superpower. I am always well rested. Story 54. I cannot take credit for this, but someone shared a trick. You pick a word, preferably without repeating letters, but it can still work with repeats. For example, take the word house. You think of as many nouns as possible starting with the first letter. Then move on to the next letter when you cannot think of any more. The trick is to visualize each noun as you go, like seeing a horse for the letter H. I imagine it in a simple cartoon style on a white background. I never thought it would work, but it helps me get through the first few letters. This technique redirects an anxious mind because you are solely focused on something simple, yet your brain is engaged like a game. Story 55. When I really struggle to sleep, I count backward from 200 very slowly and focus on each number. I have never made it below 120. Story 56. Oh, I love taking magnesium glycinate before bed with calm music and soft, dim lights. It helps me so much. Story 57. As a former bad sleeper who just couldn't get to sleep, I found 2 things that really helped, mainly focused breathing. Close your eyes, fade to black, and imagine a rectangle. Mine is white, with the same ratio as a TV, just the outline. Now imagine Tron running around the outside. Every breath in goes up the height, and every breath out goes across the width. Breathe in and out and just follow Tron around the board. I can do it now without the visuals. I just close my eyes and focus on my breathing. Story 58. I just smoke a lot of cannabis. After that, if I do not feel tired, I smoke more than I normally do, and that will do it. Story 59. Screen down at least 1 hour before bed, including television. Brush teeth and wash face. Turn down bed. Play soft piano music while I read. Read until sleepy. Turn off speaker and put on white noise. Roll onto my right side and fall asleep within 15 minutes. Works every time, but does not if one step is missed, especially screens. Take evening acetaminophen or Arnica Montana 30X if sore from working out or illness. Story 60. Don't think mantra. This is used by Central Intelligence Agency operatives and Navy Sea, Air, and land teams while on missions during which sleep may be difficult. You repeat silently in your mind, "Don't think." Repeat it loudly enough in your mind to drown out other thoughts. Good luck getting a peaceful night's sleep. Story 61. I had a really tough time sleeping until I started putting in full days of work. I am sure some good exercise would help just the same if you do not have a manual labor type job to drain you. Story 62. Go to a financial or accounting website and start reading the description of certain concepts. Can be very boring and may cause you to lose focus. Story 63. Those methods do not work if you have serious sleeping issues like me. If you can fall asleep by making up a story in your head or counting sheep, you do not have trouble falling asleep. The only thing that really works if you cannot fall asleep quickly is smoking marijuana, but that causes a lot of harm, so I do not recommend it. I would rather sleep for a long time than return to the habit of using drugs daily. Story 64. Slamming a light beer is one way. Not guzzling it, but maybe taking 5 to 10 minutes to drink it before reading a few pages of a book. Another way is to relieve stress, which usually puts me to sleep immediately. The final trick, if those 2 do not work, is putting on a sound machine and taking my eye pillow from the freezer and placing it on my face. Story 65. Keeping my phone aside at least 1 hour before bedtime and reading a book helps me fall asleep faster. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.